life that you stay out of mine.
I don't respect.
No. See, there you go, running your mouth. There you go again. How dishonorable of you. So goodbye.
Dishonorable.
I'm not playing your...
Dishonorable.
Yes, you are.
It's not about the truth. Now, guys, there's you a good example. And I did interrupt. I don't want him to spread his... He hung up on me there, guys. He hung up. I'll let me finish here. For those of you that's still here, pick your poison. Pick your poison. The truth with Fred, or what he calls respect with the Pike County Tourism and Tony Tackett. He calls respect. Respect? How do you call somebody out when they tell a lie and be respectful? You can be as respectful. I was respectful. At the beginning of this video, I said, hey, Tony, well, you're just as good. I just soon talk to you because I know he's in charge. And I said, we was going to see about getting a correction here. That's respect. I was as respectful to him as I could be. I told him what the problem was, told him what the cure was, told him that we'd found out the truth and it was incorrect. Could they correct their mistake? And that picture of Randall McCoy. He wasn't worried about respect there. He wasn't worried. I was respectful. I didn't say nothing out of the way. He wants to talk about other questions that I brought up about different people that's not related or things that's been said. I'll let me finish here. This garbage on our channel. I don't. Years ago, we contacted them when they were doing a show on Roseanne and Nancy Hatfield. And they had them GD this, and they had them drinking moonshine. They was putting on their little play, and they wrote it in the history as it went. And we contacted them and asked them, why would you make somebody look bad? Do you know that Roseanne did this? Do you know that Nancy did that? They said, prove that she didn't. Why would we have to prove that somebody didn't do something negative? Why would we have to prove that they were good while they're trying to prove that they were bad? That was a good example right there. Now, some of you may agree. Some of you may disagree. I'm loud. I'm obnoxious. I speak my piece. I have no problem. Me and this guy right here's got some animosity toward each other because he says it's about respect. I say it's about the truth. I don't care if you tell the truth. That is respect. You're supposed to respect somebody that tells fibs. Guys, I see these people gather at that well and different things. I see the West Virginia Hatfields, Oklahoma Hatfields, North Carolina McCoys. I see them gather there, and they're all going around shaking hands, and they're smiling and carrying on, just like the corrupt sheriff that I used to work for in Pike County. The county over from where one sheriff shot and killed the judge. That's up in eastern Kentucky. And I see these people smiling. He'd smile and shake your hand, and while he'd stab you in the back or shoot you just soon, do something to you. And that's what this guy's talking about. I don't care how respectful you are if you're telling me a lie. If you're lying to me about something, if you're selling me a $3,000 gun that says it's signed by Devil Ance's descendant, and you're smiling and shaking hands, but you're telling me something that's not true, and I find out later on that I've spent a bunch of money for something and it was fabricated, it's a lie, and I come back and I'm upset about it, is that not, how do you express yourself without being called a heck raiser, without being called a, oh, he's not respectful? He's called us out in 15 different things here, truth with proof. Him and his wife have proved all these things through Civil War records or death certificates, court records. They've proved all this stuff to us, but he's disrespectful to us because he's correcting us. How do you, it's a no-win situation. They had 8 daughters. 8 daughters. That's who's given the Pike County tourism history. And then he says it's about respect. It's about the truth. We're supposed to be nice and polite. I can go on and on and on about these mistruths. I'm glad I had that on video. I'm glad I got to talk to Tony. That's even better than Jay Shepard. Jay Shepard works for this guy. So you can imagine if this is the people that's in charge of Pike County tourism, then you can imagine what we're getting. Guys, I was born and raised there. Grew up on Blackberry Creek. Grew up less than a mile up the road from where Mr. Tackett and the Pike County Tourism put a monument of Devil Anse Hatfield. We did videos on it. Puts a monument of Devil Anse Hatfield facing the road, and on the back is Randall McCoy facing the hillside. As if Devil Anse Hatfield is, we've made a hero in Kentucky out of a deserter and a murderer from West Virginia. I could go on and on. I don't know how long this video is, but I'm so happy that we captured that on video, because that's what we're dealing with. Now, again, was I obnoxious? Was I loud? Guys, I nip it in the bud, as old Barney Five would say. Nip it in the bud. Why do I want to? You don't respect nobody. You don't respect nobody. Well, who am I supposed to respect? His boss? His boss at one time, or maybe even now, is Judy Patton. Judy Patton is Paul Patton's wife. They've never covered Paul Patton, been the governor, and leaving in disgrace. He says respect. Well, let's tell the truth. You want to cover different family members, different family names, but you don't want to cover other stories that's interesting to Pike Countyans because that's your boss and it's negative towards them? And that's called respect? That's not called respect. That's called deflection. That's called redirect. Let's redirect your attention over here while this goes on over there. Now, this man wasn't worried about correcting history. He's not worried about the rage disease where Jay Shepard put a picture of Randall McCoy with his face all distorted, an AI picture, as if he's got rage disease. And now we find out that he doesn't only not have rage disease, they're not even McCoys that were evaluated. He's not interested in that. Most history-changing thing in the Hatfield-McCoy feud in the last 20 years is this rage disease. He's not interested in that. Historical Society, Pike County Tourism, and you're not interested in correcting history? You would rather show... I was going to ask them to do a correction. Do a correction. Now that you know the facts, now that we've shown the proof, do the correction. Say, these were not McCoys. This was wrong. You're not going to get a correction from that guy. And I'm not going to hang on there and let him try to... He knows we're videoing. He knows we tape. We tape everybody. We do it all. We're YouTubers. That's what we do. And the reason I'm taping this is I figured it would be good content. I wanted to truth with proof. He can go off there and tell anybody anything he wants to tell them. We've got it on tape. We'll let you see. There was a time there I'm thinking, be nice, Fred, be nice. And I would try to let him talk. But the first thing out of his mouth was he wants to talk about respect. Guys, respect should be built on the truth, honesty, communication and honesty, much like a marriage. Two of the most important components of a marriage, honesty and communication. We can't have truthfulness. We can't have peace when you're sitting there trying to tell me that it's okay for Rio Hatfield to not tell the truth of his heritage, and he says he's a descendant of Devil Anse. William Keith Hatfield's genealogy has come into question. No DNA. He posts these different historical markers throughout as if he's given the history, and he gives the wrong history of Jim McCoy, Randall McCoy's son. But when we people that's had DNAs, Fred McCoy has a DNA to prove. I did that to prove. You don't want to point the finger at somebody and say, why don't you do this? Why don't you do that? When you haven't done it yourself. But when you've done it yourself and you can prove your case, does that not give a person a right to point his finger? Why don't you take a DNA? Why don't you take a DNA? Why don't you tell us the truth about who your grandfather was? A descendant of devil ants? They're not. They're fibbers. And they stand there at these things with their Bibles. I'm sorry, but I'm telling you, if you don't believe me, go back and look at pictures. They stand there with their Bibles at these Hatfield and McCoy get-togethers from Oklahoma, from Michigan, from North Carolina, and they tell you these stories, and because they've got an entity, because they've got Pike County tourism to fall back on, they expect people to believe it, and it does carry weight. It carries a whole lot more weight than just old Fred McCoy out here, other than DNA, other than proven. Guys, I'm not saying I got the best personality. I'm not saying I'm the sweetest, the nicest. I'm not saying that. We don't get the research that we got. We don't get to the bottom of where we're at without bumping heads with people. Mostly me, but I'm a Marine at 17 years old that had a bearing on my life. I was a police officer for 40 years. I was a police officer in Pike County for 10 years. I worked for one of the most corrupt sheriffs in the state of Kentucky. Go back and check Pike County history on corruption.
All right, guys. By now, you've probably seen the rest of the video. I have nothing more to say. I think it speaks for itself. Again, you can draw your own conclusion. Is respect more important than the truth? Is truth more important than respect? Be nice if we had them both, respect and truth. And with truth usually comes respect. Again, may not like a person, may not be the best presenter, may not have the best vocabulary, the best language, the best grammar, but truth's got to count for something. That's what you're going to get with Fred and Sheila, the truth. We try to stay as close to the truth as we can. And I'm sorry that the Pike County tourism has been like this. They've been like this since they started the Hatfield McCoy. Before they ever started this, they come to myself and Paul Hatfield, detectives, sheriff's detectives, Hatfield and McCoy working together, and wanted us to, we wasn't interested. Paul and I know how this has been throughout the years. Hatfields and McCoys, people can say what they want, and people do better at it about getting along, but there's still hard feelings when you bring up the Hatfields and McCoys. There's never going to be West Virginia Hatfields and Kentucky, West Virginia Hatfields and McCoys, and Kentucky Hatfields and McCoys always agree. There's always going to be disagreement. Biggest disagreement is Devil Anse was a murderer and a deserter. West Virginia tourism has tried to build him up, make him something other than that, to build up their tourism over the years, and they have. They've got tourism. Everybody thinks, look at Kevin Costner. Out of all the parts he could have played, he played Devil Anse. Makes you think Devil Anse was the better? No, Devil Anse was the villain. Devil Anse was the bad guy, but because Kevin Costner played him, people automatically thought.
Hey guys, this is just going to be a small addition. Sheila and I, after I got through talking to Tony Tackett on the phone, Sheila and I decided we need to break. We need to get out and relax. We took a motorcycle ride. Ended up in Pike County. And as we're going through Pikeville and Blackberry and Pond Creek and different areas, we're pointing out different historical sites. That video will be forthcoming, where we plan on narrating it as we go through and by various famous Hatfield McCoy sites, along with other things. The FBI agent that killed his informant that we had gone to about a corrupt sheriff, anything dealing with important stuff in Pike County. Guys, as we were riding a motorcycle, we come off Blackberry stopped at my great-great-grandfather's replica cabin at Blackberry Mountain, the foot of Blackberry Mountain, 319 and 119 intersection, 1056 intersection. We're going down past, we're going to make one. We're going to cross over the bridge into West Virginia and go to another location. And when we come up on the pawpaw trees, where the three McCoys were assassinated back in 1882, right now, there should be a video up, or at least a picture. Look at those big gates, guys. Look at those big gates. That's an addition. That has just been placed there here in the last few months. Guys, you know, we keep blaming. Mr. Tackett says Fred has no respect. I say you have to earn respect. I say truth is very important in having respect. How can you respect somebody that doesn't tell the truth, doesn't present the truth, doesn't show the truth? It's hard to do. It's hard for me to have respect for people that shows a picture of an old Civil War veteran with his face all distorted with AI. It's hard for me to have respect for people like that. Am I wrong? You guys can be the judge, but look at these gates, guys. Look at these gates. You know, there's 3 pieces of property. There's now 3 pieces of property. That's the 3rd piece. That's the 3rd piece. Now, we were told that there are no trespassing signs. Some kids or somebody tore them down. There's actually no trespassing signs on that property now. Now, let's go back to, what was it, 2001, when the lawsuit was filed by Ron and Bo McCoy against Barbara and John Vance. 2001, something like that. I may have my dates off, but I think I'm correct. They come in here from North Carolina and Georgia, and they filed a lawsuit against 2 people, wanting them to be forced to have a tour bus to pull up on their property, and that the Pike County Tourism was going to charge for, and John and Barbara wouldn't go for it. And I think in Ron's book he says that him and 2 other people went to meet with them and explain to John, what we want to do is pull a bus up here. We want to. Now, it may have been Ron and Bo McCoy that filed the suit, but they were, in my opinion, and I believe it's proven, I believe it even been in court documents, but they were persuaded or enticed or egged on by Pike County Tourism. If we only had a McCoy, if we only had a relative, if we only had a descendant that would do this. And Ron says in his book he had to step up because nobody else would step forward, so he had to. From North Carolina, didn't even know he was a McCoy. I'm getting off topic, I'm sorry. Let's go to the bottom line there. The bottom line is there that John and Barbara won in court, and John and Barbara never had a problem with nobody visiting the McCoy Cemetery in all the years that they've owned that property until a suit was filed against them, and after that, it's only once a year on Memorial Day that family members, known family members, or with proof, ID, can visit what's called now as the Forbidden Cemetery. So by trying to use force, by trying to use lawsuit, by trying to use, evidently they've never heard it's better to use honey than vinegar if you want something. The cemetery is now off limits completely, except to family members. The next piece of property, Goldie's. Goldie's Hardware Store, the old Nancy Hatfield, Wall Hatfield's daughter, Devil Ance's niece, where Devil Ance would go and hide when he was on the run. He would sleep upstairs in the bed that we have here in the museum. He would sleep up there when he was on the run, where he moved from spot to spot where people couldn't keep up with him. Goldie told Sheila and I when we were there, we bought anything of value, anything of Hatfield McCoy. We bought the sign off the front of the building. We bought the weather vane. We bought everything through my mother, through the museum. Sheila and I did the shopping. Mother did the paying. and now it's in the Hatfield McCoy Family Museum. Goldie told us that she enjoyed showing her business off so much, the old store, the old ledgers. She enjoyed it. She loved it when the buses come there. But she felt like she was being betrayed. She felt like she was being shortchanged. She was being hornswoggled. Because the buses would come there and they were charging a good price. I think she told us, but I'm not going to. I know she did, but I'll probably get my numbers off, so I won't try to remember. But she told us that when the people got ready to leave after she'd give the tour, that they would say, does anybody want to make a donation to Goldie? And I think she said the most that she ever got was 6 $1 bills. And that one of the ladies had explained to her and told her, said, honey, I'm sorry, I didn't plan on bringing any extra money. They charged so much in Pikeville for this tour that I just ain't got any extra money to give you. And Goldie said that after that, she just shut it down. She no longer gave tours. She just no longer opened it up for people because they were making, Pike County Tourism was making money for bus tours, but they wasn't spreading it around. They wasn't giving it to nobody. Just like John and Barbara Vance's property. They wanted to pull a bus up on the hill and charge a price over there. Let's keep it all for ourselves. Now, remember, the director, the one that talks about respect, is Tony Tackett. That's the man over this. Now let's talk about these gates you've been looking at for the last 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Look at them gates, guys. That is one of the most famous historical sites in the Hatfield McCoy feud, besides Preacher Ance's cabin, Randall McCoy's well. That would be the assassination site where they killed the 3 McCoy boys. Guys, there's no trespassing signs. There's nobody allowed on that property now. The fella bought the property. I think the original fella that bought it sold it to this guy. Now this guy has put gates up and says he wants to make money, from what I understand. Third party wants to make money from his property. Well, that's understandable. That's what we do in life. People sells real estate. People develops real estate. People buys certain things. Question is, why didn't Pike County Tourism buy that property? You know, John and Barbara Vance's property was for sale. He priced it to them when they sued him. He gave them a price on it. Y'all can buy it and do what you want to with it. They didn't want to spend no money. They only wanted to take money in. They didn't want to buy John's property. They felt it was easier. Let's just sue him and we'll get access to it. That didn't work. Thank the Lord. Wasn't right. You want something, you buy it from people. You don't take their property from them. Goldie shut her business down. We were told that some of the tours would still go up there, but they wouldn't. They just pull out front and let people take pictures of where Devil Ants, and they would tell them the bed's in the upstairs and the ledgers are here and there, and they didn't want to spend no money. Now, this guy here, this property was for sale forever. For sale signs all over the property. Pike County Tourism didn't try to buy that property. They didn't try to buy it. Why? Now, the fellas bought it, put gates up, put no trespassing. One of the biggest sites there is to see. What's going on with our tourism, guys? What's going on with our tourism? Do we have big fish in a small pond? Pike County Tourism, is it big fish in a small pond? Is Tony Tackett and Jay Shepard running the show? Is it time for new blood in the Pike County Tourism that hasn't made so many enemies, that hasn't made so many false statements, that hasn't generated so many derogatory and slanderous pictures against a family, a Kentucky family, a surname in Kentucky that's probably second to none as far as popularity and as far as numbers? Have they let their job titles go to their head? Is it time? Is it catching up to them on some of the things that they've done, some of the stories they've told, some of the comments they've made, some of the arguments they've had? Is it about history or is it about money? Maybe it's time for a new director and tourism staff. Maybe these guys have run their course. I could tell the way Tackett talked to me the other day. Says it's none of your business. It's none of my business that you're making money off of my family, both of my family name, Hatfield and McCoy, both of my ancestry names, my surname and my inherited name. It's okay that you're making money from the Hatfield and McCoy name and then tell me as a Tackett or as a shepherd that it's none of my business? Too many lies, too much false information given and supported as the truth. It's disrespectful. All we ask for is correct information, guys. But all we seem to get is statues of West Virginia murderers placed in front of Kentucky Civil War heroes that actually served. Why would Tony and the Pike County Tourism, it's okay to make money off other people's property but not want to buy it and share the proceeds? Why would they not want to share the proceeds? What's the deal with this fella? I don't know. I'm using my opinion here. Lack of information leads to speculation. What's the deal with this new owner of the property at Buskirk, Kentucky? The assassination property, the pawpaw tree property. What's the deal there? Did he contact Jay Shepard and say, hey, I want $10 off each person that you have on that bus? Or I want an entry fee for the bus. I don't care how many you have on the bus, 50 people. Sheila and I was through there one time. I think we were on motorcycles or videotaping. And they had a tour bus. I mean, they had brought a tour bus in, like a 70 or 80 person tour bus. And they had Bob Scott giving the history. He was out front and it was loaded and he was giving the history. This is the same director or on the board of directors, Bob Scott, that says that his grandmother, Polly, was the only daughter that Preacher Anson, Polly Hatfield, had. Is that the kind of history this man's giving out? You can imagine what else they're hearing if he's telling them that. Only somebody on that bus would know. I wanted to stop and listen to his presentation, but Sheila doesn't like conflict, and she didn't make me, but she asked me to go on. Let's let it go. And we did. So I don't know what kind of history those people heard. I know the only person that they have that's credible at all that does Pike County, sometimes he stands in when somebody's not there, or is Neil Warren. Neil Warren lives in the big brick house right there at the McCoy Well on your left. As you go across that driveway, you park across the road, walk across the driveway, and that's his house on the left. That's one of the most knowledgeable, that's the most knowledgeable person in Pike County that we know of on the feud and the history. And that's who Sheila and I would recommend. If you ever want to know the history and the accurate history, that's who we'd recommend. He's like Sheila and I. He tries to go truth with proof. He tries to show what he's saying with facts, with either court records, death certificates, Civil War records. He tries to do that. The rest of them just speak it into history as they go. And then they get mad at me when I ask questions about it. Now, Mr. Tackett said he didn't want me contacting him no more, and I won't. He doesn't want me contacting him no more because I'm rude or I'm disrespectful. He doesn't want me contacting him because he knows that I ask hard questions, that I call him out. And he doesn't want to try to answer because he knows we videotape or audio tape. He knows he can't answer why he approved for Jay Shepard to use a distorted picture of Randall McCoy saying he had the rage disease when we've covered that story. That's the biggest story. Pike County tourism should be all over that. That Pike County residents, McCoys, were unjustly accused when it wasn't McCoys at all from Kentucky or West Virginia. It was McKay's from Pennsylvania and Virginia. That one person that doctor said he diagnosed. If there was any kind of a tourism, that would be the story to do, is a correction and say, hey, guys, look here. Look what's come out. You don't have to give Sheila and me credit. We don't care about that. We just want the truth. That's what everybody should care about. It's what Jay Shepard should care about. That's what Tony Tackett. It's what Bob Scott. Instead of trying to be a glory hound and say, my great-grandmother was the only daughter that Preacher Ants and Polly had. And they had 12 children. No, Bob, they had 14 children. And they had 8 daughters. How does people consider that tourism or history if you're supplying them with the bad information? If you tell them about a 1878 pig trial that there's no record of other than history, but you fail to mention the 4 hogs stolen by Ellis and Hatfield, the guy that the McCoys eventually killed, stole 4 pigs from Asa Peter McCoy in 1867. How can we do that? How can we just expect people to give us their property or let us come on their property for free? Sometimes just offering. Sometimes just saying, hey, would you care if we done this? And we'll make a donation. We'll keep the property up for you. We'll keep it weed-eated. We'll keep it mowed. We'll do this. You should be seeing pictures by now when I was talking about the McCoy Cemetery. Look at the guy with the brush. Look at the green mow, because we only get it clean once a year. Look at the green mow on the famous tombstone there of Randall McCoy and Sarah's 6 children. That's Fred McCoy with a wash brush and Sheila filming. And when Sheila wasn't filming, I was filming her scrubbing. And then we was rinsing and cleaning up together. We'd turn the camera off and concentrate on what we was doing. Fred and Sheila McCoy, not Ron McCoy. Ron McCoy says this cemetery needs to be open. It was open. Ron McCoy's only been to that cemetery 2 times in his life. Once to tell him they was going to turn a bus up there in his yard, and John Vance said, no, you're not. After the suit was settled, John Vance won the suit, he took his daughter, I think her name was Rachel, took his daughter back there on Memorial Day one year, wanted her to see the history. Never been there before except once, and that was to ask for a man's property. Then he filed suit against the man. He back there one more time to show his daughter and said John Vance was nothing but nice. Until he found out who he was. He said, I'm Ron McCoy, and John went back in his house. And they left. Said he's never been back on the property. Meant a whole lot to him. He's never been there till he was 35 years old. Went there twice, once to ask to turn a bus on the property, and next time to show his daughter. Never been back. You got any pictures of Ron McCoy cleaning his great-grandfather, if he is in fact DNA connected to Randall McCoy? You got any pictures of him cleaning his grandfather's grave that meant so much to him? You may have pictures of him putting flowers on Devil Ance's grave over in West Virginia, cleaning Devil Ance's cemetery. There may be pictures of that. There's you a Selkirk, in my opinion. That's Selkirk right there. Who does that? Who gets the glory? Who gets all the attention from his great-grandfather's, if he is in fact a descendant, and then goes to the very man that killed his cousins, his aunts and uncles? Who does that? What kind of person does that? That they would care more about attention and standing there in front of that camera and being a representative of Pike County tourism than they would the truth of the history of their name. They don't now, but one day they will, when their children or grandchildren come up and they find out that their grandpa was nothing like the McCoys, the Appalachian, the McCoys of the mountains, and the Hatfields, the Kentucky Hatfields and McCoys. I'm not going to beat a dead horse. This may be in 2 videos by the time we do this is all connected to the Tony Tackett conversation. Tony Tackett told me that I wasn't respectful. I said, what about the truth? Is the truth not important? Is the truth not important? You earn respect. You earn respect by telling the truth. How is a person supposed to respect somebody that spreads lies and rumors and to whichever side that it may look like is going to be the biggest draw? In this case, Devil Anse Hatfield, because they've always been storytellers. That's the ones that wrote the books. That's the ones that spoke out. Randall McCoy didn't speak out. Randall McCoy was, every time he spoke out, he lost more family members. We take up for the bad guy. We take up for the Charles Manson. We take up for the Ted Bundy. We take up for the Jeffrey Dahmer. That's a criminal over there. He put up a statue. He put up a statue of himself, and after that, years and years and years later, just like the governor of Kentucky, they put up a statue of the governor of Kentucky that left in disgrace. You'll never hear Jay and Tony Tackett talk about that. But does that make a person a hero because they have a monument? Because people comes in 100 years later, 50 years later, 25 years later. They forget about what this person done, what their history is. They see a monument and they say, wow, that guy must have really been something. Well, Devil Anse Hatfield was. He was a criminal. He was a murderer. Thanks, guys.